Hey, I'm Huck, and I suspect over the next few weeks at least, we're going to hear a lot from Republican candidate Mitt Romney about what a great speaker President Obama is, while at the same time criticizing him as a much less effective leader. What Romney will not say, and what Republicans will not admit to, is the fact that over the last 3.5 years, Republicans have committed 100% to President Obama's failure. It is one thing for two political parties to disagree, to come at problems from two different perspectives, even opposite perspectives. It is another thing altogether to come at a problem from the perspective that the problem itself is your solution. That by refusing to cooperate, refusing to negotiate, refusing even to the extent that when the other side reaches out and adopts your ideas as part of the solution, that you turn your back because the problem is more politically to your advantage. And this is clearly what greeted President Obama from the very first day in office. An absolute resolve on the part of Republicans in Congress to deny President Obama and Democrats in office any and all opportunities to resolve any problem. And these were not small problems. The enormity of these problems and the millions and millions of Americans affected every day by these problems, unlike anything this nation has seen in more than 70 years, makes that Republican commitment to Obama's failure not just an abdication of their civic duty, but it makes them almost wholly responsible for the results thereafter. And that is why I think of all of the things that were said at the Democratic convention, the one thing I thought most relevant to our future was something President Obama said in his speech, that the 2008 election, just like the 2012 election, is not and never was about him. It's always been about us. That we are the change we voted for in 2008, and that we must be the hope we continue to seek in 2012. President Obama illustrated this point by pointing out that the third open heart surgery a young girl will face sometime later this year will no longer result in her being booted off her insurance because she met her lifetime cap of coverage. That change was not his accomplishment. We did that, he said. If we are going to get where we want to go, it's going to require a commitment from each of us, not just to merely go out and vote for that change come November. That's the first part. We have to be so committed to that change that we follow through, willing to meet the challenges and hurdles that are thrown in the path of that change. And that is really where we failed President Obama following the 2008 election. After we voted for that change in 2008, an awful lot of us didn't have his back. I think of all those town hall meetings during that whole healthcare debate in 2009, when the Koch brothers funded activists to come in and harass and disrupt all those town hall meetings, holding up their signs and basically trying to put the skids on the healthcare reform bill. During that whole debate, too many of us sat on our hands and allowed that to happen without any rebuttal. Some of us even bought into all the lies and distortions paid for by the big moneyed interests so resistant to seeing that change take place. I shake my head in absolute disbelief every time I hear those Ron Paul nuts or New World Order lunatics criticizing that both parties are exactly the same, that there's no difference between Republicans and Democrats. These folks refuse to vote for anyone from either party, they said, because they're both the same. They're both sold out to all the special interests. This is stupidity. And it shows a real lack of knowledge of exactly what has been proposed, who's been proposing it, and which side has been obstructing that change. These folks say that both parties are owned lock, stock, and barrel by Wall Street. But which party was it that tried to implement stiff reforms on the financial market and on banks in this country, and which party was it that obstructed it, managing to water down some of those proposals? And then, now that even a modest bill has been put in place, is vowing at this time to repeal it as soon as they take power. Which party features the overwhelming majority of Wall Street money in this election? Which party, moreover, features a Senate candidate most aggressive on Wall Street reform? The candidate's name is Elizabeth Warren, a candidate for Senate now who is so feared by Wall Street that they got Republicans to block her appointment to the new Consumer Protection Agency. President Obama had to actually use a recess appointment for the man who eventually was named to that position, because no Republican in the Congress would allow a vote in the Senate to take place. Her opponent, Scott Brown, is receiving the most funding from Wall Street ever seen in a Senate campaign. Which party has taken unprecedented steps to disenfranchise millions of voters in this country for this upcoming election? And what have we done to try to stop those efforts? You see, it comes down to more than just a lack of understanding or ignorance or prejudice or stupidity. It comes down to laziness, apathy. It's always been easier to criticize without doing one's part. One of the real requirements of our democracy, of our form of representative government, is to not just go out there and vote, but to follow up our votes by holding those who are elected to the demands we place on them. One of the reasons we've seen the pro-life movement grow exponentially over the last 10 or 15 years is because these people are committed to the changes they seek. Because of their passion and commitment to their cause, we've seen anti-abortion legislation go far beyond the norm in this country, to the point where it has become absurd. Far more than just attempting to limit the number of legal abortions that are performed in this country, something I think everyone, those pro-choice and pro-life, can agree on. We've seen that anti-abortion, pro-life movement inspire some of the most absurd legislation across America as we've ever seen. Republicans know that there is a relatively small but vehemently active and participatory minority in this country who have their backs, who stand in unison across street curbs all across this country, holding up signs and shouting their slogans. And where are those in the pro-choice movement to shout those folks down? In 2010, they didn't show up on Election Day. And after Election Day, we see even less of them. 62 million people voted for President Obama in 2008. If just 1% of those 62 million people, 620,000, marched on Washington to demand real Wall Street reform, to demand that special interest money be taken out of politics, even some Republicans would begin to feel some of the pressure. Imagine what would happen if 10% of those 62 million really got active. 6,200,000 people marching on Washington, or organized in regional protests across the country. I have a feeling you would see the kind of hope and change we're looking for. No political party would dare stand in their way. Obama captured the very essence of what hope and change really is when he told us that the 2008 election was never about him. It was always about us. Voting for someone and then relying on that person alone to enact the kind of changes and the kind of policies that we all desire is sort of like going down and buying a brand new car and then failing to put any gas in the car. You know, it looks great in the driveway, but if it's ever going to get you to where you want to go, it needs fuel. We're the fuel. This November, we must each ask ourselves, which candidate and which party offers us the vehicle by which we're best able to make the journey we envision? But after the votes are counted, we then have to be sure to provide that vehicle with the energy needed to make that trip a reality. That's what was lacking the first time. We can't make that mistake again. The other candidate in this race has another journey in mind and a lot of fuel for the trip. Can we do better? Yes, we can. But it will require that we muster every effort we can to get out the vote this November, and afterwards, putting our energy where our hopes are. I'm Huck. Thanks for watching. I'll see you real soon.